Team Wilpers fam. My name is Coach Justin Harris, and today is our Spring Run Challenge 2025 Athlete Briefing number 2. If some of you know me, I'm a little under the weather, but we'll get through this today, okay? So I'm going through Facebook and noticing how interactive our community is, and I just want to reiterate that to all you, some of you new, or some of you who haven't been involved as much, but the Facebook running group, Team Wilpers Running, on Facebook is really helpful. People are really chiming in, giving encouragement, helping to answer questions about the challenge, outside of the challenge, different races that are coming up. Maybe you're doing the same race too. So I encourage you to go in there and interact. Again, it's all free on that side of things, so it doesn't hurt to ask questions and figure out stuff going on. And that's where I'll be interacting with you to answer questions, to see what questions are popping up, and to check in on how people are doing when you share your training and whatnot. For those on Instagram as well, I would recommend and pump it out there. Show the good work that's happening, and tag Team Wilpers and tag the challenge. And maybe we'll get a hashtag going on more than, I think we have Team Wilpers Challenge, Run Challenge as a hashtag. And I'll comment on that more in the future. But yeah, so here we go. All right. And then the last reminder I would say is, don't forget that on the run challenges, we have 3 difficulty levels. Everything is written in default, but there is a more difficult version. And if you select a more difficult version and it's more difficult, don't be surprised. You know your name's out there, okay? Saw some chatter on there. And then we also have an easier option, more approachable walk-jog option, which is new for this challenge, okay? So in order to get that, you need to be an all-access member, and it's only $10 a month. Plus, you get access to Strength, which you get to work with our coach, Ava Fagan, who writes Matt's training. So you get to use the same coach as Matt, and it's tailored to this program. So anyway, that's the kind of clerical catching up stuff. All right, so what we're going to talk about today, we have what's ahead. We're going to do a little housekeeping, which is the kind of nitty gritty of what's going on, checking in, answering some questions, and then we have my training principle number 2. So last time I gave you number 1, and we'll touch on that quickly, but give you number 2 to help you perform better in this challenge. Okay, so what's ahead? All right, so in week number 2, what you're going to see is the same exact structure. Now, that's nothing new. It's a pretty standard issue. You're going to see the same structure over and over again. All right, but there are a couple little changes and little tweaks, and I'll get to talking about that. But really, I want to talk about and touch on how we learn. Okay, I was an educator. I went to school to be a special ed teacher and a regular ed teacher, grades 1 through 6. And you learn about pedagogy and philosophy of teaching and all that stuff, right? And so when we really talk about learning, and certainly in physical space, when we're learning a new skill or something like this, and everyone says, hey, you know, it's just running, everyone can do it. Well, if we all could do it properly, then we'd all be injury-free, and we'd all be running fast every time we went out there, and we'd have no issues, right? But that's not what happens, okay? So one way is we talk about working in endurance sports and anything, right, is we talk about this model of like stimulate, adapt, right? We've heard of it like adapt or die, you know, strongest of the strongest and fittest survive, right? Which wasn't Darwin, it was someone else earlier than that, but nonetheless, that's who we equate it to, right? So anyway, when we talk about training as coaches and whatnot, we're thinking about like what kind of stimulus do we need to kind of, well, stimulate the organism, right? You as the human, right? Like what's going to kind of be a little bit harder than what you've got before. And how I look at that is I call it the like kind of zone of proximal development. It's from a gentleman in education. And essentially is as coaches, you know, like if this is the zone, we don't want to be up here and say, this is what you need to do in order to be your peak fitness, you know, and you're just going to be here and, you know, you got to do it. A good coach is, you know, match people where they're at up and down and kind of trying to pull them up, right? So we call that facilitation, right? But when we give training, we're talking about giving a stimulus, right? Workouts are stimulus, and some efforts are a bigger stimulus than others. And when we do our one-on-one coaching, we use a training software called Training Peaks, and it captures this and one singular metric called training stress score, TSS score, right? And it's kind of like duration times intensity. So you can think about it as a 30-minute easy run is a lot easier overall net than a 20-minute distance test, right? Even though it's a longer duration, it's less intense, so therefore it's not as taxing, okay? The issue that a lot of people come into, and I see a lot, we all see in our one-on-one coaching with our private clients and our consultations that we have, is what we end up doing is people want to stimulate, they want to get a hard workout in, right? And then what ends up happening is they kind of start adapting to it a little bit. Hey, like I did this workout a couple times and I'm fine, right? And so I'm ready for the next thing. And the most progress I've seen in my clients, and I was just got off the phone with someone earlier, and it's been 18 months. And all of a sudden, she's taken a decent chunk off her half marathon. She took off 3 minutes off a 10K. She PR'd en route on her 5K PR en route to the, in the 10K and her 2-mile PR. So, we're kind of talking about it, and it's like these things happen. And instead of going off the model of stimulate, adapt, I add in, and it's not just me, other coaches as well, is this concept of stabilizing so that we're there for a while, just so that the body, it doesn't mean it's easy, it doesn't mean we do the same thing all the time, but we're just like kind of fine tuning in that area so the body really stabilizes where we're at. And when we stabilize where we're at, then we can actualize the progress, right? And as much as we want it to happen on our terms, everybody's different. Everyone has different, circumstances, nature, nurture, right? And so what I'll say is we often rush to just doing the next hard thing and then training, making it really dynamic and, hey, this hit class and I did this and that. And what ends up happening is you're all over the place and you don't know, how you're kind of trending, right? So getting back to our weekly structure here is you're going to see a lot of the same stuff over and over again for 8 weeks. And like my one-on-one clients have seen the same structure for years, right? I fine-tune things. There's little nuanced differences. I'm going to expose you to some of those in this build and mostly just with the long run. And we'll talk about that. But really embrace the continuity of it, right? Because last time our principle was like commitment kind of cuts through the crap. Well, commitment first leads into consistency. And then consistency over a long period of time builds confidence, right? So consistency is really stability, right? So back to the stimulate, adapt, then stabilize, and then actualize. And this happens for many things, right? We will ourselves to do something, then we're get used to the pressure, and then it's no big deal. Like talking on these chats, a little nerve-wracking sometimes, all right? So you're gonna see the same stuff over and over again, same structure with small tweaks. And those tweaks might not feel a lot, but each week builds on the next. And so what I mean by that is even if you did week 1 again for week 2, it's a different stimulus because you did week 1. And so you're carrying some of this fatigue in, right? So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to build for 3 weeks. And then the 4th week, we're going to back off the volume. Okay. So this week I only changed a couple things. I'm trying, like John did, to keep it in 30, 45 minute, 60, 75 minute classes. So you can take Peloton classes. And when you take Peloton classes, you can listen to the instructor's encouragement, but try to do, the whole point is to do what we're asking you to do, to really fine tune and deliver it in a system so that you can progress versus, the instructors are just trying to make that session great, but linking those together can be really challenging, okay? So when you see like a 30-minute run again, just embrace it, right? You're coming at it with more fatigue, but now you're also coming at it from a different perspective on learning. And I'm going to get to learning a little bit more again. But when we do things over and over again, the first time you expose to it, you're like, what the heck is this? I don't know what I expected. And then you get done with it, and you're like, oh, interesting. Then I'll say it again, or you'll reread the directions. And what ends up happening is now you're going in with some expectations and how to navigate it, right? You've learned, right? So you can approach it a little differently. And you do this again and again and again. And it'll get to one of my next principle that we'll talk about, all right? So just because things look the same doesn't mean it's boring. All the best athletes, I've worked with Olympians before in bobsled and skeleton, those athletes did the basics better than anyone, and they always came back to the basics after injury, after time off, when things were high pressure. They always came back to the basics. Michael Jordan, Kobe, Caitlin Clark, Lisa Lopes, Tiger Woods, Ovechkin, Gretzky, you name any greats, Derek Jeter. I mean, they were just super consistent and they were always there. They did the basics really well. And I hear this a lot. My zone 2 running, my aerobic run is boring. My friends are commenting. I'm afraid of my pace. Who cares? The lights aren't on. The lights aren't on. In competition, when the lights are on, at your race, that's when all these things matter, not in training. In training, we're just trying to execute and minimize the bad days and appreciate the good days, okay? So embrace it, all right? So what's ahead? So you're going to see a lot of similar structure. The only thing I changed for this week during the week was the speed play. I added a couple more reps. Recoveries, warm downs are short because I'm trying to keep them in this time range before making a big jump another 15 minutes. You're highly encouraged to run a little extra time. I'm trying to respect 30, 45 minutes. Frankly, I would write them 35 minutes, 37, 42, and you can just take the class associated with it and walk to finish it off. And so maybe we'll have some more of those discussions, but you have free range. You don't, not in this tight window for that cool down. I think I have 5 and 7 minute cool downs. What I'm saying is it's more important to have a proper warm up on speed play on VO2 max days, because VO2 max, velocity at oxygen maximal uptake, the V is the most important part. We want to boogie on those sessions, all right? But you need to be in control. If you're getting slower throughout the session, you start a little too fast. Be a little progressive on it, right? Start a little conservative, build into it, all right? But the V, the velocity is most important. If you need to take a little extra rest, take a little extra rest. It's okay. The V is the most important, okay? Everything else the same, progression run, same length. Explore it. Start slow. Shuffle. I've done these sessions with Africans. They used to be called African runs. And I've done it with a guy who held the Ugandan national 5K record on the road at 13:51. He was my roommate. We shuffled so slow at the beginning of runs, but we ended up running much faster later. So warm up into it. Kipchoge runs something like 9-minute pace at the beginning. Something insanely slow. They run slow because they're allowing their body to warm up. So progression runs, start slower than you think, and then slowly work into your way and dimmer switch. Ideally, I'm providing structure here, but ideally I would want zero structure. All right, cat's out of the bag. All my one-on-one clients are like, why are you structuring it? You told us not to. I think by structuring it, you're gaming it, and races don't necessarily happen on that. So you have full reign to kind of slowly slide the dimmer switch up. You don't have to be as structured, but use the structure as support, kind of like bumper rails, but explore, all right? You should feel finishing pretty strong, but definitely in control. Nothing you should be gassed. Nothing you should be gassed. I'd rather you do an extra day of training than to empty the tanks, okay? If you're only doing 3 days of training, you can push a little bit. You have space in between. But once we get to 4 days of training, we need a lighter day in there. 5, we need 2 lighter days. 6, we need lighter days, all right? Because every week, a healthy training plan has 3 quality days. Some kind of speed session, VO2 max, something like that. Some kind of threshold session, and some kind of long session. Those are the quality. More than that, it's not sustainable. I don't care if you're doing it. Does not work in a sustainable way. It might work for a couple years. Maybe you did it when you were younger. It's not going to work forever. I can guarantee it. I'll put money on it, all right? Because I work with the clients that haven't taken a day off in 2 years, who've stagnated. They want to get better, and it's always an off day, okay? So take your time with these things. All right, what's ahead? Hilly long run. Last week was flat. Why are you giving us hilly? Why are you doing this? Well, I like to juxtapose. As a triathlete, when I was training for triathlon, it's really hard to get an easy swim, hard swim, long swim. If you work in that format, swimming's a little bit different, so not quite. Hard bike, fast bike, threshold or long bike, VO2 max run, threshold run, right? It's too many sessions. So all of a sudden, I was panicking, how do I get all these done in 7 days? And I was just burning myself out. Well, open it up to 2 weeks or 3 weeks, all right? We don't need these all the time, all right? We're still getting a long session in on the hilly run, but I'm trying to have people have different cueing, different focal points, okay? But a lot of it's based on effort. Again, I'm giving you structure of pace to put you on some bumper rails, but you have a little bit of freedom as long as you go, all right? So for the long flat run last week, I was telling you to be on the brakes, and then we can slowly get on the gas throughout the end of the run. In a hilly long run, I actually make my hilly long runs in my one-on-one plans with clients because I can monitor it a little bit better. I make that the longest run of the block is the hilly long run. Well, that's a double whammy. Now you're making it the hardest run, the longest run. And what ends up happening is a lot of people, my early clients, make it a triple whammy. They go say, hey, I got to run X pace. Don't do that. Go at a slow pace. I think Thomas the Train, choo-choo, chugga-chugga. I'm just going up the hills and I'm trying to keep my heart rate down. Does the heart rate creep up on a hilly long run? Yeah, but it can't be up there for all the time. So arbitrarily, but with a lot of anecdotal information, try to keep your heart rate under 165 the best you can on these runs and just chug away. It's about time on feet. And then you're going up hills, you're getting structure, you're getting strength, posterior chain, calves, Achilles tendon, hamstrings, glute, low back. That's all strengthening. On the downhills, don't rip on the downhill to make up pace or anything. Just try to catch your breath, get the heart rate back down as low as you can. Enjoy the flats, enjoy the down. But a little bit of downhill helps, a little bit of the pounding helps prepare the quads and everything for some of the longer marathon races, especially if you're running Boston where the first 16 miles are net downhill. You have to be strong for that, okay? So a hilly long run net goal is to just choo-choo. I'd rather you spend more time on your feet. It's a little bit longer, a lot slower, and you're gonna feel really good after it. That's the key thing. You should not be exhausted. You should not be out of breath, all right, on these hilly long runs. And it's kind of, I just put for a long duration of time, one pace, just be in a range. Be the easy pace minus 45, 50 seconds. I mean, even on our numbers, that we have, it's just one pace for easy pace. I'm often a minute off that. Like I start way slow and most of my running is way back there. So don't be afraid to run slower. It has nothing to do with your ability on this session. Just cruise. And over time, over 8 weeks, maybe the pace drops down when you execute it if there's not too much fatigue. Because at this point now, slowing down is just going to be fatigue. It's not a loss of fitness. You're gaining fitness, but fatigue is masking, okay? So I'll say it one more time. Hilly long run, just chugga, choo-choo train up the hills. Have some fun, all right? Enjoy it. Go off-road. Find a trail. Just go enjoy it. And basically what I mean by hilly, and let's clarify hilly, because we have our people who can do a 20-mile long run and get 20 feet of elevation. Hello, Florida and North Dakota. All right. And what ends up happening is my flatlanders are like, how do I get hilly runs? Well, guess what? We have the same problem with my mountain people who are trying to get a flat run in. It's just relative. All right. If you have an option and that route's hilly and this one's a little less on a flat day, go take the flat day, right? Go that way. But for a hilly long run this weekend, if you come to a T in a road and right is some hills and left is flat, go right. Go have some fun. Chug up the hills. Don't be afraid to walk up them. Always, when I'm out in the woods and I'm going up a steep hill, I walk up the hills on these type of runs. I'm just trying to get time on the feet. I'm trying to keep my heart rate in a nice zone before sending it through the roof. And I enjoy being out on the roads, all right? Actually on the trails. I don't enjoy the roads personally. I'd rather be in the woods. For my treadmill people, it's somewhere between 3 and 8%. You're just ranging it, like you can be at 3% for a minute. Like just make it super random. But do come back down to flat, 0% or 1%. Like come back down to catch your breath and just have fun with it. Challenge yourself, but more on the back end of the run or the middle. And it's going to be random every time because you're not going to have the same route all the time going out there. Okay. So that's what's ahead for this week. All right. Housekeeping. All right. We have some housekeeping. So I mentioned that, there's a way to kind of utilize your current race results and put them in instead of having to do a 20-minute test. Everyone fears the 20-minute test. And when I got into it and looking at it, that's my mistake. It's quite a few calculations. It is doable to figure it out using a VO2 max calculator. So if you take a half marathon and you put it in and you see where your threshold pace is at, and then you see where the equivalent is, you can use a calculator to kind of reverse engineer it. It's something that we're gonna start working on to try to make it so that you can put in a recent race result instead of a 20-minute test to have accurate results. Not promising anything. It's going to take a little work on the back end. It might not be in this block, but it is something that it will be potentially more useful in tandem with the 20-minute test. Okay. Again, if you run a race, and you can look at it as your 20-minute test, you can put it into a VO2 max calculator, and you can kind of see where your race was. And if your VO2 max score or VDOT score is higher, you know your paces are going to be a little bit faster, okay? But we want to try to get those, so that's something that we're going to be working on, but no promises, and we'll get there. All right, I talked about progression runs. Start slower, ease into them, and when you're in feeling like, hey, this is not manageable and I'm starting to struggle, back off. And personally, I say just shut down the run and just jog, nice and slow to the finish of the time. It just means you're overzealous. You got all this energy, instead of spreading it out to this far, you use it up here. Okay, learn. Try to stretch it out a little bit more and be a little bit more patient, okay? And then my other thing is hilly and flat is relative, okay? I mentioned that a couple times. So do the best you can with it. And my Midwest people, you deal with wind, so there's resistance, and so it's going to be random. So if you have the option is maybe you start, you try to make turns to head back into the wind versus avoiding it, okay? All right, my last thing I want to talk about, because I want to try to keep these short and sweet, is last week I talked about my first principle being commitment to the process cuts through the crap, all right? So when you're committed to something, you don't worry about the ebbs and flows of motivation, which is really happens through fatigue, okay? So my second principle, though, is to embrace the journey of mastery, okay? So let's double click on that, all right? So embrace the journey of mastery. What does mastery mean? Well, mastery means that we're really stinking good at something, right? And, but as we all know, like, if we look at movies and stuff, the master still says, like, the teacher teaches the master, the student teaches the master still, like, they're always learning. So really, in layman's terms, it's like to have a beginner's mindset, all right? And to embrace the journey means that, what's a journey mean? I mean, it's not a linear process, right? There's going to be hurdles to overcome and barriers to get through and whatnot. So, but embrace the journey of mastery kind of implies that we're imperfect, all right? And there's one thing that I learned, it came from Carol Dweck, psychological researcher out of Stanford years back, this concept of growth versus fixed mindset. And I find that there's a lot of people that just can't get out of their own way and they're fixed. This is my pace, this is who I am, this is the type of person I am. And instead, she challenges people to, especially for youth and education, and we've actually gone too far that it's all about your effort. At a certain point, you can put in so much effort, and I'm never going to break 4 minutes in the mile, right? But the real concept is a growth mindset, that your brain is like a muscle and that we can overcome really challenging things. So as you go through this challenge, and as you have in the past, I know Coach Ferry and Matt has always challenged you to grow and to learn. So embrace the journey of mastery. And I started seeing some comments and getting some DMs on Instagram and different stuff about, it's really hard to run slow. And I'm always going to challenge people and say, out loud publicly, is like, why? Why are we making this hard? Because you don't feel fast? Because you think you should run X pace? It's just kind of meeting your body where it's at. We can ignore it, but on those days, if we're running 3 times a week, you can push a little bit, right? But again, once we go to 4, we're going to have to listen to our bodies a little bit. And if we add strength, and I'm saying anything, you're adding strength on there, those are training sessions a week, right? Once we get over 3, we need easier sessions, okay? So embrace principle number 2, embrace the journey of mastery. Be on this journey with me. I'm learning from all of you. I've been in this 20 years. I've done it on your end, and I've been on this end coaching for a long time. I've coached a lot of different things, and I'm always learning from people. So take that with you through week number 2. Is be curious, have questions. And I'll keep pointing back, is ask questions on the post for week 2 where this video is at, and just keep asking questions. Try not to embed them so much. There's a lot of responses, which is awesome. But if you have a unique question, try to ask it somewhere else. It's hard to look at all the replies. You can at me on Instagram, J Harris Coaching, and you can DM me. I'll try to answer some questions. But again, we do have consultations with all our coaches. We do have one-on-one private coaching if you're looking for a little bit more. But embrace the journey. All right, enjoy week number 2, and let's finish off week number 1 and have a good time. So I think that's it. I got a couple minutes. I'll go in. Are you okay with mixing up the workout order based on schedule, weather, etc.? Yep. So Dana asks if you can, like, how do you mix things up? Yeah, you can. Obviously, ideally, it's the way it's done, and if you can shift days. The next thing would be is like, you kind of flip quality days, so like you can flip a Monday and a Wednesday, Wednesday and a Friday, different stuff. You're just trying not to go hard, quality sessions back to back. So we wouldn't want to go VO2 max into progression run. It's not ideal, or progression run into long run. These aren't ideal. Can you do it one week? Yes. But when we start cramming things in, I'm often is like, if you miss it, just, it's a great philosopher Jay-Z said, just brush that off your shoulder and just move on to the next thing. Again, consistency is what kills, right? So we don't need to stack things in, all right? All right. I'm just going through some stuff, so hopefully that answered your question. Yeah, I mean, it's your life. You can move things around, but don't... don't be surprised if you put back-to-back sessions together, okay? All right, I think that's it for questions. I'm not seeing anything else. And go from there. Left for eggs. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, no, and yeah, you should go outside, whatever works for being outside. I'm an outdoor cat myself, so, get outside, do your stuff. And you can flip things that work for your schedule, but yeah, that'll work. Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, listen, enjoy week number 2, embrace the journey, take the long run, the hilly long run. It could be really a triple whammy really fast by focusing on a certain pace. Again, what you're going to see is we're providing structure and some bumper rails with pacing, but really when in doubt, just back off and enjoy it. Right? Because then the next day you wake up, you don't feel as crappy. And so then you're more you have more energy to give. And like I say to my clients, it's been my kick the past week, 2 weeks, is one of the laws of thermodynamics is energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's simply transferred. So whatever you lay on more today is just going to be less that you're going to have to spend tomorrow. Okay? So enjoy. All right. Have a good weekend. And I will see you all this time next week, same time, same bat channel. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye.